Hello YouTube, this is a video of the first time that I ever gave a pair of my 9-banded armadillos a bath. You can see almost immediately they turned the water muddy because they're quite mucky animals. I emptied out that muddy water and started putting in some fresh warm water. You can see here the armadillos really like the tap when it's running. They'll quite often go over and stick their noses under it. Captive armadillos do love these opportunities to mess about in water. In the wild they can hold their breath for 6 or 7 minutes and they'll actually cross a river either by sinking to the bottom of the riverbed and walking along the bottom, or they can hold their breath and inflate their lungs and they can float on the top of the water and swim across the surface. So what you're seeing here is a pair of 9-banded armadillos. These are the most common armadillos and they're actually increasing in their range in the wild. These two are captive bred. The scientific name is Dasypus novemcinctus because of the 9 bands that they have. Quite often the ones that you find in the wild, they won't have the 9 bands. They'll have either 8 bands or sometimes 10 bands. But these two captive bred individuals, they've both got the 9 bands and they're both really friendly. I'd say the male, which is the larger of the two, is a little more friendly than the female. They both enjoy having their head rubbed, but I would say that he enjoys it a little bit more than she does. I've got a 3-banded armadillo as well, and my 3-banded armadillo loves having his head rubbed and is a bit more like a cat. Like he'll have his head stroked under his chin and things like that, and he closes his eyes like he's really enjoying it, and he'll actually roll over onto his back as well and let you tickle him on the tummy. These two are not quite that friendly. The male one lets me stroke him on the top of his head and he does seem to be enjoying it, but neither of them likes being stroked under the chin, I think because they've got sensitive hairs under there and they're just a little bit kind of sensitive underneath their nose area. As you can see, they're pretty large animals and quite heavy, very strong. They've got big claws. They can't bite you or anything like that, and the claws, you know, they could probably do some damage with them, but you've just got to be careful how you pick them up. If you pick them up, they've got a very strong kick as well, so you've got to be careful when picking them up because they can quite easily leap out of your grasp. It's more a case of kind of lifting them up, like even to get them to the bath here, I had to lift them up, put them in a box, and then bring the box into the bathroom, then carefully lift them from the box into the bath. Just because as soon as you do pick them up, they're all sort of kicky. So what are they like as pets? Well, I wouldn't recommend it if you want a sort of a traditional pet because they are quite a bit of work. When I first got these, I thought, you know, because in the wild their habitat range, you know, is quite big, they'll walk for quite some distance. So I thought surely giving them the bigger enclosure would be the best way to go. So when I first got them, I put them in the biggest enclosure that I had, but actually in that enclosure they paced backwards and forwards quite a bit and they didn't seem to be enjoying it. So I put them in a smaller enclosure just to try it out, and actually they're much more at home in that. It's almost like they feel safer. They want it to kind of replicate their burrow kind of environment, I think. So their enclosure is all full of timothy hay, which they kind of pull about and they'll make it into a big nest and then they sleep in it. They sleep for most of the day and they'll just come out just to feed in the evening and at night time, and then they're quite active for a few hours. But most of the time they do spend sleeping. This was my other worry when I first got them, because I'd heard that they dig their own burrows in the wild. I thought they would be digging the whole time. But as long as you've made their enclosure as much like a nest area as possible, then they don't feel the need to dig. My other armadillo, which is a 3-banded armadillo, is the small type that curls up into a ball. And that particular type, in the wild, it doesn't make its own burrow. It will actually take over a burrow that's been made already by another animal. So it doesn't do as much digging. These 9-banded armadillos do eat a lot more than the 3-banded armadillo as well. These aren't quite fully grown yet, but I would say they're eating probably a couple of tubs of mealworms a day for their breakfast, and then in the evening they'll have chicken hearts all chopped up, mixed with NutriBulk for extra kind of vitamins and minerals. And yeah, they eat a lot of chicken hearts. Basically, if you give them a plate of food, or if you give them a choice, if you give them 2 plates of food and one had a higher protein amount in it than the other one, they will always be able to sniff out the one that's got the most protein in, and that's the one that they'll always eat first. So they really love their protein. So it's not cheap to feed them, that's one point. Another point is that you definitely have to feed them in the morning and in the evening. So twice a day, definitely. So it's not easy like a snake or something. If you kept a snake, you could feed it and you could leave it for several weeks and go on holiday or whatever. With these guys, you haven't got that option. You've got to be there to feed them every day, twice a day. The other thing is, when they first go to the loo, it's really quite smelly because they've got musk glands and they mark their territory. So when they first go, like I say, it's quite smelly. But if you get them a latrine area in their cage, then they'll always go in the same place. And then I've got a dish and I can basically just lift out the whole dish, tip it all into a bin bag, put it back in, and then they're not smelly again for a while. My main aim is to be able to breed these at some point because they give birth to identical quadruplets, and I think it would just be the most amazing thing to see baby armadillos in the setup. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed sharing this armadillo bath time. Hit subscribe to see any armadillo videos that I post up in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.